Welcome to the Jets UK podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Andreas Groves, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Craig Edmunds and Matthew Merrett. How you doing, guys?
All good.
Matt, how you doing?
All good, man. All good, man. Transfer deadline day yesterday, so we're off that excitement. Aubameyang coming to Chelsea.
Yes, I said
needed.
You need him.
The season we've had.
You need him.
Yeah, we need all the help we can get, man.
Interesting. Yeah, it was busy, busy time in the obviously with football on our side of the pond, and so it's always interesting with the transfer deadline day. We are at the end of the summer, so obviously there's two of us have got the kids here, but there's been a lot of travelling as well. So it's been a long week, but a fun week. Lots of news, lots of jet-related news. Big week, obviously, with the final three being locked in right now. Obviously, some guys on the edge will maybe get replaced if anybody gets brought in. But for now, we have a 53. Interesting cuts. Some interesting people have kept. So some interesting takes to be had for today's episode. So that'll be the biggest chunk of the episode, was obviously just us going through the whole thing and just kind of having our takes on what happened this week with the cuts and that how that final roster looks going into the season. But first, we've got to talk about the news that broke a few hours before we are recording right now, is the CJ Mosley contract restructure, which gets the Jets cap compliant because they were currently projected over the cap, if you believe it, even though they have pretty low dead money, but pretty high cap spend, so they're really filling out the roster. It's an interesting deal. Basically, with Mosley, he's restructured. It's going to have 2 void years. So obviously, it's the classic kick in the road. Kicking the can down the road situation. You've got just bringing up the message, just bringing up the details now. Just give me a second. But basically with the Jets, you've got them. They restructured the 14.88 of his salary into a signing bonus, creating about 11, just under 12 million with his cap being just under 6 million this year, which means that next year, if we would want to cut him, it would be 11 million dead on the cap, with a 10 million savings, and the year after that, 8.8 million dead with a 12.5 million savings. So CJ's basically, they're basically saying what we've seen from CJ, we are relying on him and we're pretty happy. We're bringing his cap down, but it's got pretty big cap hits down the road, Matt. What do you think?
I mean, we've seen so many teams do it. It's just cap wizardry, isn't it? It's part and parcel of the NFL these days. These big contracts, they're signed 1 year, 2, 3, 4 years later, they look completely different. And the reason that is basically all that it means is that signing bonus is spread out over the years of the contract. So if you have a convert money into a signing bonus and then add a couple of extra years, you spread that money out for longer period of time rather than hitting the season. It feels like a pretty win-win deal because the Jets obviously needed to kind of create some flexibility for themselves this season. We know that injuries happen in the league. We know that people might become available for trade. We just want to have options open. So I think making sure that you've got that flexibility and using one of your big contracts to do that without having to get too pernickety on the smaller guys makes a lot of sense. I think CJ's obviously happy to do it because it doesn't affect his take home necessarily. So it's a win-win, gives us flexibility down the season. I don't think it'll be an immediate move used for, but let's see how it pans out over the season. And it's good just to know you've got that bit of extra change in your back pocket in case for a rainy day.
Yeah. And how are you feeling about, obviously, we had to get under the cap, so it was something that had to be done, and it creates a bit of extra space if there is a move, as Matt said. How are you feeling about, the player, Craig, staying, from what we've seen last year, you would hope maybe with a bit better talent around him, he won't be left out to dry as much, and maybe, we will see a better CJ Mosley than last year, at least one that maybe more consistent throughout the year. How are you feeling about the player maybe sticking around for a year or two at least before we have to be a bit more free of the dead money?
I think it's good business, and actually that is one of the best things about this regime is they are operating. We've said it many times. The adults are in the room. They are operating with complete transparency. You hear Robert say, I don't want to darken anyone's doorstep with the memory of Adam Gase, but you hear the man speak and you thought he was lying the minute he came in the door. You thought he was chatting shit from day one. And these guys have such just a really, like I say, transparent approach. We all know what's going on. The cap is a joke anyway, but the rules are the rules. And we've had, considering the cap space we've had over the years, we've not made it work for us. I think you give a player like that, whatever it was, 15 million outright, pay off, make him feel valued, recognise that it's helping the team in him doing this, but let him know, we're putting big money into you, man. We want production. I think it speaks to a well-run organisation. That's what it does. It feels like we're getting it right. We're being really clear. We're at work, right? These players are at work. You guys work with people where the person at the top is chatting shit, trying to get get as much out of you for as little as possible. It does not feel like these guys doing it. It feels like they're invested in players, that they're really big enough to say when players probably aren't either up to scratch or don't fit our system or are not in our plans. Let players, treat them like adults. Have high expectations. For me, it's another big check next to the Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh regime.
Yeah, it's when you start to see void years and moving the cap along, it's just the sign that you're starting to get some talent on the team. Unless when you combine that with the dead money being so low, it means that the cap, you've got a lot of players who are earning good money, and the quality of the players is good, and you're having to restructure things because you're having to do a little bit of that wizardry you talked about, Matt, because it's now becoming time when we've had so much cap flexibility, we haven't had to do it for the last few years. We've just kind of just eaten into the cap that we've got spare left over, and now that's not the case. So yeah, I think the player should look better this year. I think CJ is an absolute leader. You see him, leading the motivational speeches on the field before almost every game. You see him. It's always CJ Mosley. He is the leader of the defense and one of the leaders of the team. And I think his play will be, he's not going to be prime CJ Mosley of the Ravens, but if he can be, the first part of last year CJ before it fell off, because he's got, Quincy's a bit better in the second year, and you've got Quan being in there as well. I think it's just going to be a little bit less pressure off him, and he can do his job and to a higher level, more consistency. And yeah, I'm really happy with it.
Much stronger unit.
Yeah,
I can't see it being a bad thing. Much stronger unit.
This is
good for him.
You invest in leaders. You invest in these people as long as they can also put it on the field as well, which he can at this point. So no, really, really good. Obviously, he was a guy who was not somebody I ever thought about in the 53. Obviously, we've been talking so much recently with the guys on the back end, but a guy right at the top of the hierarchy who gets a bit of the news topic now, and we can look forward to. Yeah, he's a guy that we kind of forget about a little bit because he's just he's so there, but it'd be really awesome to see him playing at a more consistent level and in a better unit. So looking forward to that, and a bit of spotlight on CJ. So yeah, there's a 53. I think there were some surprising names. We're not going to go through all the names. I think at this point we're recording this obviously 3 or 4 days after the cut, so we've all seen the names. But Matt, who's the guy? Who are the guys that you are kind of maybe a bit disappointed they didn't make the cut? Maybe not that it was a wrong decision, but maybe that they didn't come through and kind of perform for the evaluation of the staff.
No, I'm going stronger. I've got 2 wrong decisions on offense.
Go on then. Give us those wrong decisions then. Go give us that.
And I know that we all Joe Douglas on Craig's point. Definitely got adults in the building,
yes.
but they're still not above criticism in my opinion.
Go on then.
That's facts.
Until we start getting that winning record.
Absolutely,
100%. That is big facts.
That's facts.
Yeah, absolutely. Go on then, shoot away then. Where, and then we can catalogue this, and then I'll hold you to it for the rest of the season. See if they were right or you were.
You hold me to this.
Go on, let's see.
2. First one in running back. It's running back 3, but I can't believe you take Ty Johnson over Tevin Coleman, man. That makes no sense to me. Like Tevin is was by far the best pass blocking running back in the room. He was that third down back. He was after Breece Hall's had his runs and catches on first and second down. You're on 3rd and 6, you're on 3rd and 7. You need a running back who's going to sit in and give your quarterback an extra half a second. That was Tevin Coleman. Ty Johnson has shown nothing over the 2 years he's been here as the third down running back, which is apparently why they're keeping him. He can't catch, he can't block. It makes no sense because he's so similar in the mold of Breece Hall that you're not giving yourself any difference, any flexibility in that room. You haven't got that man in there who kind of knows how to sit in the pocket, pick up the extra rusher and block him, and give Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco half a second extra to find his man and move the sticks. So that one,
let me give you a counterpoint. I kind of do agree with you. I thought that keeping Tevin Coleman gave us something different to what we have, but I would say that, the counterpoint is having Ty Johnson. As much as if you think that the drops were are something that you don't expect to be as bad as last year, you hope that there's improvement. Maybe you've seen it him perform better in training. There's things that we can't see that maybe they're seeing improvement that in areas that we saw only in game film last year when we were able to see it in front of us or on TV. But in terms of as a runner, he is obviously a talented runner, and he can give us that explosive play when Breece has to come out or Michael Carter, or you want to spell them, give them a break. You still have that explosion in there. Not that Tevin Coleman does have it, but maybe they're seeing it. That maybe if we saw him last year, we didn't see a lot of him in preseason. So the last time we saw him was last year, and at that age, people can go over the cliff in terms of being that where you want them. So maybe they're seeing stuff that we don't see. But you're right. It'll all come out, right? And what you were saying? What are you saying, Craig?
I think that I think we briefly talked about this on the Lost Pod. I don't know if we're gonna share that, but we lost one. And
we lost one. The one that me and David recorded. Me and Craig originally recorded it, and it got corrupted in some way. Had to re-record. But yeah, repeat the point. Yeah.
And when we talked about that, I said that I expected Tevin Coleman to make the running backs room. Now, I think that what you're suggesting, I get that. For me, the only thing I can put it down to is a financial decision. I cannot understand why we've not kept him. Matt, you made a fantastic point about pass blocking, and I think that's a big deal. That's a huge, I think, a loss. I do think he's our best pass blocking back. But the other thing for me is, I just think, with someone like a Tevin Coleman at this age of his career, you can use him like a LeGarrette Blount type. Late in the second quarter, your running backs maybe they're not having the level of success. Maybe they're getting a bit frustrated. You need someone who's just going to pound it, who's going to get 1 yard, 2 yards, and just keep pounding linebackers, who's going to be quite happy with that punishment, quite wear down the defense, so late in the third we can bring back in, Breece and MC. I just it feels like of the backs that we have, Tevin Coleman was the real difference. Actually, I think that the 4 backs we've got are much of a muchness, except the top 2 are much better than the other 2. Whereas Tevin Coleman was the difference. So unless we're going to make a move in free agency, or I don't know, maybe, I don't know. But like I say, I can only assume it's a financial decision. And I think that, while we are praising the organisation for how they are running our club, considering the shit history we've had, we're fans, we can hold them accountable. And it's a question I've got to agree. I'm very surprised, and I'll be fuming if we don't have the level of physicality that we expect from our running backs.
Yeah, I think Bam's going to bring a bit of physicality. I think he's a guy who, he's made the roster. He looks,
he better.
Yeah, I think
he better.
And he's the young guy. He's the young, undrafted guy who you could, who's dirt cheap, right? So you can do the same thing with maybe more upside. The other thing is Tevin Coleman, maybe let him go as a favour to see if he can catch on somewhere else without wasting time.
Yeah, absolutely.
That could be, so again, so we, absolutely go, not sure about this one, but let's hold criticism because they may be doing him a solid as a guy who's been who's known like LaFleur and Benton, all the people who came from San Francisco. Maybe they're just doing him a favor, saying, you're not going to get much run here. You're clearly behind these two guys. You're probably even behind Bam, in some points as well. If he was the guy instead of Ty. And then you're like, okay, maybe you catch on somewhere where they haven't got a lot of depth. Maybe you'll be the backup, or So maybe we'll see. Matt, who's the other guy? You said you mentioned two, so I'm curious to see the other one and see if we talk another 6 or 7 minutes on the one decision. What's the other one you got?
I'm sticking on offense.
Go on then.
And again, I'm around the bottom of the depth chart because I feel like when it's talking about the 53, you're looking at those, but I feel like we've seen enough of Jeff Smith as a receiver to know that he's not going to be a difference maker. And Calvin Jackson, my guy, showed up in preseason. Was it two game-winning touchdown catches? He looked crisp in his routes. He looked strong hands. He looked like he had potential to kind of round out that roster and kind of give you a little bit more explosiveness and a little bit of bit more dynamic at that position, rather than Jeff Smith, who's dependable and kind of keeps your floor at a certain level, but doesn't push your ceiling at all. And I know there's the whole special teams angle in this.
And Boyer gets one from each side, right? Boyer gets one, and that's probably Hardy.
Yeah,
and Jeff Smith are probably his two choices, right?
That's tough, man. You can't let that. If you're paying Hardy $2 million a year to keep a sixth wide receiver as well, I don't buy it. If you're really telling me that Calvin Jackson, who's a JUCO product, undrafted free agent, isn't going to be able to contribute on special teams, I don't believe you, man. I think he would have been more than capable of doing that job and committing to that. So
yeah,
I think in terms of like, it feels a bit of a safe over upside thing. And I think when you're at like wide receiver 5 or 6, depending on where you put Denzel, I'd bet on the upside of the young man in Calvin Jackson. And I believe he's back on the practice squad. I think he's signed on the practice, but
they can get nabbed.
I didn't really like.
You can get nabbed.
They can get nabbed. Yeah. They could have got nabbed in waivers.
He could have.
It's risky.
Yeah.
And I just would have brought it. I would have chosen Calvin Jackson for that explosiveness and kind of just keep building a young wide receiver room who can grow together.
I think if they found a trade for Denzel, they would have kept Calvin Jackson, but they didn't, so they had to keep Denzel. And then
listen, I don't like the way we're framing that. I am chuffed that Denzel remains a Jet currently.
No, I am. I think
we're really low on him. I think he can really contribute.
I'm not low on him at all. I think he's got so much talent. We saw it against the Giants. It was a great performance. It's the performance we've been waiting for. First touchdown in the NFL. We know he can do it. So basically, from what we picked up a little bit, I know David in his article, in his Jets piece, had a bit on Denzel today, Friday, as we were writing, in terms of what he's been hearing. Generally, is just that there's, they have their guys who and Denzel was not one of their guys, so he's not going to get favoritism. He's going to have to kind of overcompete. But the thing is, like it's very clear, if Corey goes down, because of the way, because of the body type, Denzel's the natural fill-in guy to play that role, and he'll get his shot. The NFL, it just happens, right? For a series, for half a game, for a couple games, you never know. There will be a chance where Denzel will get a chance, and then it's up to him to be like the guy we saw against the Giants. Like, be that guy, be available, make the catches, don't make the stupid blunders, pre-snap, alignment, all that stuff has to go out of the way because the other guys aren't making those mistakes.
Hot take. Sorry to
interrupt.
Hot take. I see Denzel starting over Corey Davis before the end of the season. I think he's got such a higher.
I hope so, because that's great. Because that saves us on the cap next year. You let Corey go, Denzel takes a position. We've got young wideouts. Get
Corey out.
No. Okay, we won't have Corey Davis slander. Look, we're not going to have Corey Davis slander here because he's a very good player as well, and he's a very, very good player. Like we're so excited about Elijah. We're so excited about Garrett. We love Braxton and what he does, but Corey is a solid receiver, and we've got to give him his respect as well. But I do think that there's an opportunity.
High floor, low ceiling.
Okay, fair enough. I think that Denzel has the opportunity potentially to grab, if there's an opportunity, he's got to grab it with both hands and say, this is mine, you can't drop me now. He has to do that because this is just the way it is. From all points, he likes the team. He likes where he's, he likes being a Jet. He loves his teammates. he just doesn't think the opportunities are there, right? And doesn't think he's going to get the opportunities. That's why he went through. So we will see how that works out. But it's interesting how how all that Denzel stuff knocks down to, like I said, a gripe that Matt had with Calvin Jackson, who's now on the practice squad. I think it was calculated risk, and it worked out because obviously he was a undrafted guy. We got excited about him, but there's a lot of guys who can flash at that time that maybe go, well, I'd rather keep my guys because I've worked with them, right? So there's a calculated risk that someone like that may not get nabbed. But we had a lot of players. It was a record number of players that were claimed by other teams. It was like 12 players in this whole process that have been claimed by other teams, which is ridiculous. It shows that the difference between the 50th, maybe the 50th, 45th to 50th guy to the 80, 90, there wasn't much difference there. There was good NFL players throughout this team. So yeah, interesting takes on those. Yeah, two offensive ones, but like I said, one of them, Tevin seems to be gone. Calvin Jackson's still around and probably will get some run when there's injuries inevitably happen in this bloody game where there's so many injuries all the time. Craig, what's your feelings? Any hot takes? Anything you're not happy about? Anything you're happy people stayed? Any decisions you're happy? What's your takes on the 53?
So my big one was the Coleman one that Matt's already discussed.
Yeah.
Less about the 53. I guess I'm just properly gutted that Vinny Curry hasn't managed to get a season in the Jets uniform, and I just think it's such a difficult one because don't get me wrong, he's not the player he once was, and he's not going to he won't be a top 10 in his position by any stretch of the imagination. But I really believed having the likes of Solomon Thomas, these really, really good players who were not going to start, who were going to contribute, who were going to play that, second and third string, who for many teams in the league would go and start. I think it is a big loss for us. I think that what we saw too often last year was losing in the middle of the game, right? We'd have hot starts or hot finishes, but we couldn't put it together for 4 quarters. And when you don't have players like Tevin Coleman, when you don't have players like Vinny Curry, I think that's when you lose those type of games. You need those solid professionals who are going to contribute to the team, quite happy with their role, who aren't going to be causing drama because they're not seeing as many snaps as they would like, but very, very satisfied with a clear... And that's what this regime is providing. Very clear roles. Very clear roles. Are you happy? You're going to sit. You're going to be able to fit in with what we're hoping to do. And I really thought he would. I thought it'd be massive for the likes of those younger receivers. I think people like Quinton Williams need some of those vets to show how you can forge talent into a career. So I think that's my biggest disappointment. I was really excited about that defensive line in general, and I thought Vinny Curry had something significant to offer.
I mean, I do agree. Like there was going to be good players gone in that defensive line because there's so much talent, and they bet on the youth. But who do you cut? Who do you not keep? Bryce Huff? No, you're going to keep him. Yeah, who else? You got JJ. You've got Michael Clemens. You put Jacob Martin in. These guys obviously Carl Lawson is going to be. I think the thing is they've got enough leaders. I think Quinnen's now getting to the stage of his career now where he is becoming that leader now. Like you can see him. He just seems to be becoming more. He's not the young player anymore. He's now much more of a vet. You see the way he's preparing, the way he was working with Laken on his technique on the side. Like there's little things like this is where he's learned enough in the spring and the summer from people like Vinny Curry who have passed and not come. Like Vinny Curry's worth was just as much worth in the summer and being in those meeting rooms in the spring and summer as he is on the field. Like once we're in the season, you just got to see it on the field, and like maybe those guys have more on the field ability. But Vinny Curry, I think they've put him on IR. So it's one of the things. Again, it's not so much of the decision where they said you're cut or you waive this. It's mostly he's just not. He's just not there.
Shame.
It is a shame. It is a shame. But I think there is a lot of experience as well as talent on that defensive line. We talk about. So I think they'll be okay there.
I mean, I do think still, regardless, we arguably have got the deepest defensive line in the league. I think that's a legitimate. I mean, somebody I'm sure David or Matt, you might have some actual stats to support that. But I just think on paper, we've got one of the deepest lines in the league. So we have to get production. And I think that I'm worried about some of the younger players if we don't get the results early. That's my biggest worry. And I think people like vets like Vinny Curry, vets like Quan. I mean, we haven't even talked about Quan Alexander. I am so pumped at this guy coming in and what he can offer to our ball club.
Yeah. I just read that Fred Warner was on a podcast mentioning that Quan Alexander was like his favorite teammate and learned so much. He's learned so much from Quan. So you look at someone like Quincy, with having Quan and CJ. I mean,
Laughing.
you couldn't ask for with CJ with Quincy's ability, his natural like physical gifts. If you can have the two guys to lead him to like being like a, bring in what he's missing in that missing piece of Quincy, it could be a very interesting situation there with that linebacking. It could look a lot better than we think. Talking about the defense, going into a further part of that. The final part of the line of that back line is the safety positions. It's interesting decisions they made at free safety. Obviously, Will Parks was let go, and I wasn't. I thought he was a guy who should have made the roster, but he has made the practice squad. He's come back again. You're putting him out there to risk. He could have been taken because he showed up pretty well, but they went with the guy Tony Adams, who's the undrafted. So like Bam Knight, undrafted rookie who makes the roster now. He was signed to a pretty big deal as an undrafted rookie, so they thought quite a bit of him after the draft, and they gave him a decent contract then, and they kept him on, and he's impressed. And I've been looking into it a little bit, and I've seen a little bit. So as this decision makes, we all dive into these things, and it goes around. And I've seen things, and our friend Joe Blewett has been looking into it, and he'll be putting up a video going through all his stuff. And he's posted some clips, and just like he looks impressive. He has shown the promise that you would want from someone that you bet on that over someone like Will Parks. What's interesting is Ashton Davis makes the I'm actually more annoyed by the Ashton Davis one. Like Tony Adams, like he's looked good. It's a small sample size, but go with it, right? Ashton Davis, dude, we've seen him so many times. He is the epitome. This is what we said when we were talking about eliminate explosives, Salah. He always goes on like this. This guy, if it gets to his situation, he does not have to figure out the angle. Like he does not have to figure out the angle, and he just lets that 10, 15 yard play into a massive touchdown multiple times. So that's the one I'm annoyed that they've kept because I'm like, what has he shown? Like I know he's a 3rd round pick. I know he's got a lot of natural abilities, got great athleticism, but come on, dude, like it's just not getting it. And if you're killing people like Denzel for not being with it, on a mental aspect. Ashton, come on, it's a little bit of a double standard when it comes to those things, but that can be a Ulbrich versus LaFleur thing in terms of what they want in their room spot. I don't know, Matt, what are you thinking about the safety, the free safety position next to Whitehead?
So on our post draft podcast way back when, months ago now, time flies though, we talked about the undrafted free agents, and I had one request for Tony Adams when he signed. Do you remember what it was? I said he needed to take the number 33. He needed to take the number 33 because I've got an Adams 33 jersey.
Oh, yeah, of course. I remember that. Yes.
And I've just been looking at all as apparently he's taken 22.
He has got 22. Yes, he has, yeah.
22, which I'm fuming about because I was looking forward to getting somewhere out of that. But
maybe it's still available. Who's gotten 33? There's obviously a lot of numbers who've now been released with the players.
I don't think anyone's wearing 33. It's a cursed number after Jamal, but I thought Adams might come back in and let me wear that jersey again because don't wear it too much anymore. Safety position, I don't really have any real complaints with that. I think after Jordan Whitehead and Joyner, the guys are kind of closely packed and I think Ashton Davis, you can still bet on that upside. He's still a natural athlete. He's still a competitor. And I think I would be being a bit of a hypocrite if I said, after what I said about Calvin Jackson, to then say about Ashton Davis, because I think Ashton has the most upside in that position and he's got those natural talents. Yes, as you say, Andres, he gives up those big plays, but he is someone who came to football quite late. He was a walk-on at Cal.
Yeah.
So the hope is, and I understand the hope, and I can buy into the line of thinking with Ashton Davis that there is a player in there, and there is a higher ceiling that you're not getting if you're keeping someone like Will Parks or Elijah Riley or Jason Pinnock. So I buy it. I think Tony Adams, need to see a bit more of him in action. To be honest, I don't really know much about him, but I buy into the safety position. I think it is one of those question marks on the roster as it currently stands, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But at safety 3 and 4, I totally get buying into the upside of Tony Adams and Ashton Davis. So no real complaints from me on those positions.
Fair enough. Craig, what are your thoughts on safety?
I think that the cut in Pinnock was. I didn't see that coming. I don't think any of us discussed that in advance. So, I mean, I think we've discussed Ashton Davis before. My view is. So we always used to joke that you should never be tackled by a safety. The safety is and it's a long going thing, right? Safety, a bit like the kicker, we feel that is the least athletic person on a field. And so I like Ashton Davis because he's not a chump. Like athletically, the guy he could be as good as anyone. So I like to think with good coaching, and winning. This is the thing as well. Like all of this for me is superfluous. The biggest issue for the Jets moving forward is we have to win. Like there is something about experiencing what it takes to get over the hump and getting that feeling within a team of young players. So, not the most precise response, but I guess like I'm quite willing to trust the coaching staff at this point. I think that they feel that the starting spots are locked up. We knew that beforehand, and coach him up, high ceiling. I think I wouldn't be surprised if we do make a move, whether that be any free agents or throughout the season, that it either happens in the running back room or in a safety position. But yeah, I mean, look, I don't hate it. I was surprised at Pinnock, but I'm willing to trust the staff, and I think that if you've got a stud, a guy who can run, who's got length, coach him up.
Yeah, I guess the only thing is obviously with LaMarcus Joyner, we've got injury concerns. We haven't seen him for a while, so it's not someone that you've got a solid starter. And if the injury goes down, like we always say about the offensive line, which obviously is way more important in terms of protecting the quarterback, but it's the same. You don't want to have a precipice of talent once the starter goes out, and the starter is already not somebody who's like massively locked in. So you're going to probably get a bit of run from the other guys. So that's why you just think, okay, well, like I said, Will Parks came back to the practice squad, so I think no harm, no foul. But you just think that he's a guy I feel could hold up more in preventing those big plays where sometimes you just need a guy to make a play to prevent a touchdown and get let's have a goal line stop. Let's try at least use that defensive line to get that goal line stop. We've done it a couple of times. That's what you try and do, right? Make them kick a field goal rather than touchdown, or if they have to get the points, then they're going to have to go over it and you can get them on down. So I don't know. There are some players out there,
but then on that, that's in the passing. In the passing game, I think Ashton Davis offers more upside than Will Parks. So obviously the highlight plays of Ashton Davis are the running games, but like in the passing game, you talk about the same thing. I think I trust Ashton Davis more to come down with the pass breakup than Will Parks. So it swings and roundabouts, isn't it?
Well, yeah, swings, but heavier. I think it's heavier things because I think it's more weighted on the defensive line, the way we attack. We obviously are more susceptible to runs because of the way we attack. The linebacker, the running, stopping the run has been something that we've been talking about and worried about for a while now. And with Sauce and with DJ Reed, you look to say, okay, we've improved at cornerback. So that is a big chip in preventing the pass, and you like what MC2 does also in the slot. So you're thinking, okay, it's really about kind of, I think it's the issue that where our weakness is, Ashton doesn't solve that, and it could be a problem. But like I said, it is bet on youth, bet on experience, bet on athleticism. If you want to do that, go for it. I'm not going to make a big complaint, but I just have a little bit worried about that safety. But there are people out there like Jaquisti Tart out there who could come in if we need it. So, Dave, Craig, what's up?
I think just in terms of, like, I guess, scheme,
Yeah,
I'm expecting to see an improved run defense, but I'm not expecting that to come as a result of playing the safeties up. I'm expecting that because our linebackers are going to fill holes. That's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting Quincy to improve in recognising the danger early. Quan's going to give us that for sure, and he offers something in coverage. But what I'm expecting is our corners and our safeties. I'm expecting hold it down for 6 seconds. Hold it down for 6 seconds, and we're going to get the quarterback. That's what I'm expecting, which is one of the reasons I do think that there is more upside in Davis because of that level of athletic. We want boys who can run. We need you to be able to run, cover, get close, because we're going to go get the quarterback.
fine.
So I'll be surprised if you see the safety trying to help with the. I mean, don't get me wrong. If we're facing a heavy set, then sure, bring our safeties right up. But I think our general base defense will be expecting corners and safeties. You run, and you cover. We're going to go get the quarterback.
We'll see what happens. We'll see when Ashton Davis has to come in and gives up a touchdown that lets the other team to win, and then I'll be serving up this chat back in your face in a few weeks maybe.
Unless there's an injury, I don't see him playing a lot anyway.
Well,
I don't see him.
But that's if there's an injury. I mean, come on, this is the NFL. Like, this is the problem, right? But like I said, enough of the safety chat. We have to see how it plays out again. They may just by the time we even release this, they could sign somebody and it changes everything. We just don't know. Things can happen quickly. But as it stands, that's an interesting chat. And obviously, I think the biggest question mark weak spot that you think in terms of the whole roster. I think offensive line, they made good choices. It was pretty simple choices. I think a few people left, like Chuma Doga looked like he may get traded. We're like, what's going to happen here? We get a trade for him, but then he was released, so nothing happened there. The last point, I think, and it's probably the most, it's the most important position, but it's not obviously the main guy, and it's not the temporary backup, who's the vet who we're looking when we start week one. It's that third role that we all get very excited about, and that's the quarterback position and the third QB on the team, because we're absolute nutters here. The Streveler versus White debate.
Streveler. We want Streveler.
No, we will say Streveler did make it back onto the practice squad, which is awesome because, like I say, what he showed, like 3 touchdown winning drives for all he did was just win and ball out. So I was really surprised that someone didn't take a shot on him. But he's 27. There's a lot of things that you could say they took a risk and they got him back. He's back on the practice squad. Fine. Mike White versus Streveler. What's the thoughts?
Well, on the point, I would have kept Streveler as quarterback 3. I can't lie, because I think there's the upside and there's the excitement, and the squad seemed to buy into him. But once you make the decision to cut Streveler, I do not understand bringing him back onto the practice squad.
Yes, you said that.
You've only got
our chat,
14 practice squad positions. What is the point? What is the point in wasting one of those on a 27-year-old quarterback who's not a developmental talent? He's a backup. You're going to have injuries in other positions. Keep someone close who can do it in a high risk injury. And I appreciate it might be because there's Zach's out, and we don't know in case they have complications with Zach. But there's so many quarterbacks with Streveler's level who'll be floating around, and you'll be able to get a hold of it. It felt a bit of a semantic, heart over head decision to me, putting Streveler on the practice squad rather than kind of investing anything, because practice squad is kind of for that upside, for that investment, for that security. And you're not getting that if you're wasting a position on a quarterback. So, like I said, I would have kept Streveler over Mike White. I think Mike White's days are numbered, and the sooner he leaves, the sooner my boy Garrett Wilson can get back in that 5 jersey. So keen for that to happen.
Yeah,
but
interesting. I understand your point though. Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic. You said you would rather keep him on the squad as a 3, but why is the point keeping him as the 4th guy on the practice squad? I guess maybe he earned it. You get about $11,000 a week as a practice squad player, and he's a guy who deserved a shot, and he deserves to be on the roster.
That's mine. It's heart over head.
Yeah. But I think as a morale for the team, like I think it's like there is something to be said about like this guy was like the team really rallied about, and you see all the post game
No,
chats, and I think there's something to be
if
said.
you're
Like,
relying on your fourth string quarterback, your practice
look,
squad quarterback to bring you the morale to your team, something's gone wrong, which is
look,
bigger
we saw Luke
than
Falk come
the
in,
issue. You
right?
can't say it's been brought into.
We saw Luke Falk come in a few years when Sam went down, and then thing goes out, very quick succession. You never know what can happen. I would rather have him over some other random dude, like not in another position. You're gonna have a quarterback on the practice squad. They always have a quarterback on the practice squad. Why not have Streveler? That's what I'm saying. So, you know, it's is what it is. You know, because you know. So I don't know, Craig. What's your thoughts on it all?
I think I kind of agree with you both. I think that
Fence sitting.
which is not a comfortable position to be in, and also not something that I usually do. I like to check. I like to nail my
Yes.
colours to a mast. But I guess for me, the first question, I don't know how he's beat out Mike White. So whether that's about loyalty or because the thing for me is, if you've got Mike White, why do we need Joe Vacco? Or vice versa. There's not, whereas you can tell Streveler can do not as well, but do some of the things that Zach does. So the argument for keeping him around is that he can get familiar with the offense. If he does go down and we're not happy with Flacco, you've got Streveler. He can come and run the offense that we've all prepared for. Got that. That makes sense. But and to keep him on the practice squad at his age, if he was 21, 22, sure. 27? I mean, I would like to understand why. Maybe it's about loyalty. Maybe, the point you're making, I do understand that. And maybe Streveler's quite happy with that role. But my biggest issue is as solid as he was, I don't really know why we are keeping Mike White around. That feels like a roster spot. He's not gonna. He doesn't offer huge amounts. He's not. I don't see him as winning us games when Zach goes down. And it's a strange one. But much like I was saying around the safety decision, at this point we hold them accountable. But I'm willing to trust the regime and the decision making. But yeah, not one. I love Streveler. I love a guy he's just someone who looks like they love football. That is my type of player.
Yeah, he's a great guy to get behind. As soon as he started leading the line, the legend grew, and it just continued. And I was just chuckling. I was actually watching the last game. I was at my desk at work on night shift. I was just chuckling. It was early game, wasn't it? It was the middle game. I was chuckling when they won the second game, and then I was doing the same on the last game. I was like, oh, he's won another one. Like I was just like, the guy just finds a way to win. And there's something to be said about that. I think Mike White is still riding off that Bengals game with the staff, doing it against a good defense. Did quite well last year against other teams, and he had a good game against them. But really, if you look at the game, it was Michael Carter. It was it was Elijah. It was like other people. He was given the ball and let them do the magic. And which was effective, and he should be praised for that. Led to a great win, but against similar opposition in preseason. I know there was a slight drop off from, say, second and third stringers to third/fourth stringers that Streveler was against, but there is a massive difference. Neither was really going up against the starters, and Streveler looked significantly better. I know Mike White looked better in the last game, but they I think it's just part of the wanting them to keep things symbiotic in the room for Zach. So because obviously he gets on really well with Mike White, I think it's a lot of things like that is a factor into it, which can be criticised.
No, I think stuff like that counts.
It does count though.
If
but
that's the decision why, then I'm happy. I'm all right.
I think it is. I think it is because Joe. They may see Mike White as the long-term backup for Zach. Is a guy that you could keep, but I don't know because he's out of contract. So it's kind of at this point it's it's what it is. But I think keeping the four guys who have worked with the team all summer, the guys who have built a rapport. So if there's a guy who's a practice squad, that guy on the practice squad are getting good reps. Like a Calvin Jackson is going to continue getting good reps with Streveler. Like he's not going to have some schlub who can't get it done on the field, So they trust Streveler to run practice in a certain way at his level that's going to carry on through. So all the four quarterbacks they trust to run practice so that their receivers, running backs, everyone else can get good practice in. And I think there's something to be said about that. But again, it's always the big decision after that great run. We always as fans going to back Streveler over White. But they made a decision, and I don't hate it. It's just an interesting one to see and see how it plays out. But hopefully, we've got Flacco for a week, maybe 2, and then Zach's in for 15, and we don't have to talk about Mike White or Strevler at all. That's the hope. That's the prayer. We pray. Please, come on.
Fingers
please,
crossed.
please. You know. So that will wrap us up for this episode. It's been quite an animated one. I think this happens when there's big decisions being made and some people that we've taken a fancy to get let go or stay. So it's been a good show. So next week we'll be back to preview the week 1 game against the Ravens, which is crazy. We are there now. We'll be speaking with guys from the UK Ravens, also to preview from their perspective. So they give us obviously the lowdown on their team, and we'll be previewing it as we did last year, a hearty previewing of that game as well. So Matt, is there anything you want to say to listeners before we head off for the weekend?
Enjoy the last weekend without Jets football, man. It's all going to be the roller coaster kicks off soon, doesn't it? The ups and downs.
Yep. The nervousness
pain,
till
the
Sunday
joys.
afternoon. Yep.
The NFL is back.
Craig, anything you want to say?
JETS, let's fucking go!
Let's go. All right, guys, enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the week. We'll catch you next week for our Ravens preview. So, catch you next week.